You're welcome to watch this presentation with title Can Naturally Ventilated Office Buildings Cope with Dusty Outdoor Air? Before starting, I would like to thank my co-authors, Flourentzos Flourentzou and Dusan Licina, for their contribution to this work. To begin with, natural ventilation, it's a ventilation technique that brings many advantages together. Initially, it permits the improvement of thermal comfort to reduce overheating and to increase the comfort of people during summertime. It improves indoor air quality if it's operated correctly. And it can do these two functions with low operational and gray energy demand. However, natural ventilation cannot protect adequately building occupants against outdoor air pollution, as there is no outdoor air filtration or purification. It was found that the use of natural ventilation increases the penetration of outdoor air pollutants. And one of the outdoor air pollutants that is in our interest, it's particulate matter, which was found, according to epidemiological studies, to provoke the most severe health impacts. And in general, there is a lack of studies that examine the resilience of natural ventilation in polluted areas. And talking about outdoor air pollution, our focus today will be dusty outdoor air. Dust episodes, arid areas, and climate change. As nowadays, it is estimated that arid areas and areas in general that are affected by dust episodes cover around 40% of the planet's surface, where 2.1 billion people live and are affected from these dust episodes. And there is a need to examine the resilience of natural ventilation in such environments, in dusty environments. So the question we tried to answer with this study was if naturally ventilated buildings can provide high environmental quality conditions even in dusty environments. To investigate this question, we traveled to Cyprus, an island located in the East Mediterranean Sea, which climate is characterized, it's arid or semi-arid, and it's affected by dust episodes, severe and frequent dust episodes, where we had an investigated building, an office building, which was 100% naturally ventilated and served as our case study building. To give some more details about the building, it was designed based on bioclimatic principles, and it was a Class A building according to the local energy performance certificate. It had high thermal mass and insulation. It was using, as I said before, natural ventilation with many window opening positions that were permitting many natural ventilation strategies. It was equipped with ceiling fans and adequate solar protection. It had, however, AC units for heating and cooling when the passive strategies by themselves were not enough to provide comfort. And the users, the occupants, were able to control all these elements according to their will to satisfy the comfort needs. In which building we performed measurements for the energy consumption and the environmental quality, both subjective and objective. Regarding the objective monitoring plan for the objective measurements, we installed in several zones of the building indoor particulate matter sensors, as well as we're monitoring the particulate matter levels also outdoors in 2 locations, and we're also monitoring other comfort parameters for indoor thermal comfort and indoor air quality, such as temperature, relative humidity, and CO2, again in several spaces of the building. The used sensors for the particulate matter was the OPC-R2 sensors from AlphaSense, and for the temperature, relative humidity, and CO2 was the NetAtmo, which had sufficient accuracy compared to high-grade sensors. The results regarding the indoor particulate matter concentration revealed that for PM2.5, the indoor concentrations, the average indoor concentrations were in compliance during the occupied hours of the building, were in compliance with the WHO air quality guideline limit in 4 out of 5 investigated spaces, while the outdoor concentration was around 7.5 micrograms per cubic meter, which 25% above the WHO air quality limit. Regarding PM10 concentration, we noticed that the limits, the WHO air quality guidelines limits, were respected in 2 out of 5 indoor monitored spaces. But generally, the indoor average concentrations during occupied hours were below 20 micrograms per cubic meter, which indicates generally an acceptable indoor air quality, as the 20 micrograms per cubic meter is the next intermediate threshold of the WHO air quality guidelines. Compared to the outdoors concentration, which was close to 40 micrograms per cubic meter, which indicates that the outdoor air was inadequate and highly contaminated with coarse particles. Now, regarding the evolution of the indoor PM concentrations during the different hours of the day, we can see that the indoor concentrations had a peak during the hours, during the occupied hours, and especially when the building was, the occupants were entering the building between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. These high concentrations were both, this peak in the concentrations was observed both in PM2.5 and PM10. This peak in the indoor concentration can be also explained by the outdoor concentrations, as during the morning and the evening commuting hours, we observe high concentrations both for PM2.5 and PM10. So this may be also the explanation for the indoor peak, in the indoor concentrations of particles during the morning hours. Regarding the indoor to outdoor particulate matter ratio, we can see that this ratio is both for PM2.5 and PM10 was the majority of time below 1, which indicates that the outdoor air is more contaminated than the indoors. And we can see that during the occupied hours of the building, between 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, this indoor to outdoor ratio, the indoor to outdoor ratio was higher than the other hours, indicating that we had sources of particles in our indoor spaces, and these sources were mostly the outdoor air ventilation and the indoor sources of resuspension, as we didn't have any other significant indoor sources. So regarding the indoor CO2 concentrations and the perceived indoor environmental quality, these are the results from a typical space of the building. As we can see that the indoor CO2 concentrations remained below 1000 ppm for the vast majority of the time, more than 90% of the time, which indicates also an excellent indoor quality in terms of CO2 concentration. And regarding the subjective indoor environmental quality measurements, we observed that more than 90% of the interviewed occupants evaluated the indoor environmental quality as exceptional or very good. Regarding the energy use of the building, here are the results, the monthly consumption, the measured and the theoretical one, according to the energy performance certificate. As we can see, in the year 2020, we observed a higher consumption compared to the predicted one, and this was due a technical issue of the problem of the building, as the filters of the AC units were not replaced, and this bad maintenance was leading to another consumption of the HVAC system. When we located the problem and we solved that, the actual consumption of the building was really close to the theoretical one, indicating a very small performance gap, which was not significant, and proving with the measurements that the building was actually Class A building. To summarize, we observed that indoor PM2.5 levels compliant with the WHO air quality guidelines in 4 out of 5 monitored spaces. The PM10 levels respected these limits in 2 out of 5 monitored spaces. Indoor CO2 concentrations remained below the 1000 ppm limit for more than 90% of the time. More than 90% of the interviewed occupants evaluated the indoor environmental quality as exceptional or very good, with all these results leading us to the conclusion that naturally ventilated buildings, if they are well designed and operated, can offer high indoor environmental quality with low energy use, even in dusty environments. With that, I would like to thank you, and you're welcome to reach me out to ask any question. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the European Union for providing funds for this research via 2 different research and innovation programs, as well as my university, EPFL. Thanks.